Hey everyone, it's Karen Gunton coming at you from the Lighthouse Revolution headquarters. And today's a special day here because 1 year ago today, this little baby was delivered to my front doorstep. And I'll never forget the surprise on the delivery man's face when he pulled up in the truck and I went running outside, jumping and leaping around because I was so excited. Um, so I'm celebrating today 1 year since the first moment that I held this little baby in my hands and a dream came true, a dream that I had of bringing this book to life. And I wanted to talk a bit about that because I think sometimes we have this idea that everyone's got their shit all figured out, that people think, oh, Karen, she's such a go-getter. She can just make stuff happen. She's got no fear. She just puts it out there. But honestly, I really do. I really have fear. I really struggle. I come up against blocks all the time, and I did through this entire process. So I wanted to just chat a bit about the real truth, the behind the scenes of what it takes to overcome that stuff and take action on the things that you want. And you might not have a dream yourself of writing a book. And this is just an example. This is my example. There might be something else that you want for yourself. There might be something else you're dreaming of. There might be something you're wishing that you could create at some point one day, or even something you want to change in your work or your life or your business. And I guess what I really want to do is inspire you to start. Start today, because 1 year from this moment, this exact moment, you could have the thing. It could be done. It could be out there. It could be, a done deal. You'll already be on to the next dream, but you have to start. My process, from the starting point of outlining and planning to write to holding the book in my hands took 7 months. 7 months. And I hadn't a clue about writing, an actual book, self-publishing, doing a crowdfunding launch. I didn't know about any of that, but I figured it out. And so that's the first thing I want to share, really, is that every single thing is figure outable. I promise you. All the stuff that feels overwhelming right now, if you start today, you can absolutely figure it out. The second thing I know for sure is that the time is never ever right. It's never going to be right. You're never going to feel like you're ready enough, or you have enough time, or all the pieces are in place enough. But you have to decide that you want it enough, that it matters enough to you to do it. And hi, Sarah. And the third thing is there is a way through every single block. I promise you. Anything that you feel like is standing in your way, the fears, the doubts, the excuses, the stories you're telling yourself, the resistance you feel, um, all of it, all of it. There is a way through. I know people talk about mindset stuff and getting unstuck, but I don't believe in paying lip service to that stuff. I believe in actually working on it. So I thought I'd just tell you a bit about some of the big resistance I faced and how it came about that I could work past it. And they were all tiny little things, tiny little moments, but they're all big in my mind because they helped me to get through. And maybe I hope they'll help you as well. So the first thing is that I thought to myself before, this isn't a lifelong dream. Like this dream has only been happening for I would say maybe about 2 years. So a year before I actually had the book in my hands was around the time that I started thinking maybe I can do this, maybe I should write a book. So it wasn't a lifelong dream. It was something that just suddenly started to bubble up inside of me. That we all have those kind of dreams that we need to pay attention to. In fact, I can remember a few years ago having a conversation with my mother-in-law, and she said, "Why don't you write an actual real book?" Because I'd written lots of workbooks and guidebooks and ebooks, PDF ebooks that I sold from my website, and I did about 12 of those over the course of Build a Little Biz, and I'm really proud of those books. They're all things I created, but for me, those were kind of easy. I would just put my ideas on the page, or I would put my blog posts together into an ebook, or I would just teach something, and write it up in a Word document. And because I was a designer, I could make it look nice, and I could save it as a PDF, and I could sell it. And so when she said to me, you should actually write a real book, I was like, I have written real books and I don't need to write a book in order to do what I want to do. And I had these sort of this defensiveness and these excuses, you know. But deep down, it's because I thought it was going to be too hard. I was like, why bother? Like, I can do this so easily by, pressing save on my Word document. And why bother going to all that trouble and expense and effort and, but deep down, really, there was a couple of other things. I didn't think I was enough to actually write a real book. I thought that there was all these rules I'd have to follow. I'd have to change who I was and use capital letters and paragraphs and have research and have references and all these things I kind of abhorred. I didn't want to do all of that. And so I just got defensive and I was like, why, who says I need to do that? And it wasn't part of my dream. It literally was not even on my agenda. I also, to be honest, thought that a nonfiction book would be boring. I didn't really like reading nonfiction. I thought it would be boring. So it wasn't on my radar, wasn't going to do it. And then I started talking about the lighthouse. I started talking about what this as a symbol meant to me. And I started, exploring, like, what else could I learn from the lighthouse? What could it teach all of us as a framework for, self-leadership and rising up and getting unstuck, and doing the things that we say we want in the world and being our best self. So when I started to talk about what I was exploring and it resonated with people and they're like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I can use that as well. And this is what I get out of it. And I started to have those conversations. That's when the idea started to bubble up. And I had this idea that maybe I had something that was worthwhile putting into a book. And that if I did, I could reach more people, that more people could hear about how the lighthouse could help them. And because I was actually using the lighthouse as a framework, like using the actual pieces of the lighthouse and what we could learn from it to find my own way in the world, and I was, practicing what I preach, because of that, I was better able to start shining light on my shit, on my fears, on my resistance, on my excuses, and recognizing them for what they were. And so it was actually the lighthouse itself that helped me to start opening up to the possibility. The very first one that I had was this idea, like I said, of the nonfiction book. Like, ugh, yeah, it's so boring, and I've got to have it all perfect in chapters, and had this sort of, negative idea about what that would look like. By the way, my book has chapters and references and all of those things now, but I couldn't start, even considering it as a possibility because I had this negative idea in my head about what a book was. And whereas if I made a PDF, I could make it pretty and beautiful and I could do it my own way and I didn't have to answer to anybody who was like, that's not what a book is or looks like. And then I came across this book by Seth Godin, What to Do When It's Your Turn. And by the way he launched this inspired me. The book itself inspires me, but even the way he brought it to the world, I was like, oh, you know what? All those rules that I have about what this has to look like, who says? Like, this book is like this eclectic mixture of bits and pieces and fonts and images and funky stuff and stories, and it's random and eclectic and awesome and different, and I loved it. I was like, there's more than one ways to bring this thing to the world. And this wouldn't have even clicked as an aha if I didn't already recognize my own story I was telling myself about what a book looks like. So that's what I mean when we recognize the resistance, when we recognize the excuses, we shine a light on them. Not only do they start to lose power, but our brain starts looking for answers. It looks for strategies. It looks for a way through your block. So that was my first sort of moment where I thought, maybe I could actually create something that felt like me and that would be fun to create, and I could do it my way. The next one, so that was the first little, the little thing that planted a little seed in my head. And then a little while later, I was actually away camping with my family, maybe about a month or so after I saw this book. And I was reading this book, Light is the New Black, which is a fantastic book. And as I was reading it, up until this point, I had this idea in my head that I wasn't ready to write because I needed to learn more. I needed more training. I needed some kind of certificate if I was going to help people sort of transform their life or write something self-helpy or, share something on these ideas of self-leadership and leading ourselves and that whole kind of genre. I'd need a certificate. I'd need to maybe, get some more training, have something else under my belt that would make me an authority. And I was reading this book, which, as I said, is a fantastic book. I love Rebecca Campbell. And as I was reading it, we were camping. I can remember clear as day, sitting in my lawn chair, reading my book and going, yeah, I knew that. hmm Yeah, I already teach people that. I talk about that already. Yeah. And I had this moment where I was like, you're an idiot, Karen. You're ready. Like, who says you need to have a certificate or a class or a course or whatever? Like, you already have stories like this. You have strategies like this. If she could share them, why can't I? I have no idea what her credentials are or anything. I picked up the book because I really like her vibe. So that was a big aha moment. And again, it was because I recognized that resistance and I allowed myself to be open to the message that I was going to get about my next steps. So then I was camping and I was like, I had to grab my journal because I had this moment where I was like, maybe I can do this. And the ideas started to bubble in my head about what the book might be about and how I might lay it out and what I would maybe want to share. And I just did a bit of brain dumping, where you put all your ideas on the page. And I thought, there's still something missing here. It's not coming together. Like, I got pieces of this, but it's not quite right. At that time, I had 5 components to the lighthouse. And there was things I wanted to talk about and things I was brain jumping on the page that didn't fit in those 5 components. So then I was out walking. We were camping, and I was out walking, and I heard a song on my headphones. I was listening to Spotify, and I had this aha moment where that next component, a 6th component that I've been missing, it just downloaded into my head. I had to like quickly get back to my journal so I could keep brain jumping and keep writing. So that would never have happened if I didn't start to think, maybe I can make this. So even if you don't feel ready for whatever project you want to bring to life or whatever change you want to make, start just getting it down into a notebook. Start letting the ideas come forward. Write about your fear, write about your resistance, because when you do, you create space for the new stuff to flow. So that was like, I was like, okay, and I got 6 components. And I'll just tell you that when I was writing, I was almost finished writing the book. A 7th component was like, wait a second, there's this whole other bit here that I've only just started to explore, and it wouldn't have ever come if I hadn't written about the other 6 bits, the other 6 chapters. So letting it flow is so important. The next bit, even though I was starting to feel excited, is I still thought it was going to be too hard to bring a book to life. Like what I call the book is because it's an actual physical book compared to an ebook, something that you can hold in your hand. So there's still a piece of me that was like, you know what, I can just write all of this in a Word document and save it as a PDF and sell it that way. Easy. I don't have to push my buttons with all this like too hard, too expensive, never going to happen, need a publisher, need an agent, need all these reasons why not. And then I was doing some brainstorming one day about my audience, about who might like to read this book and who I wanted to touch. And I had this awareness, this aha moment of deep inside what my secret dream was. And my secret dream was and is that one day I'll be hanging out at a cafe or something and I'll overhear a couple of friends talking, and one of the friends will be talking about how, they're feeling or they're stuck or they're just not, feeling ignited about life, or there's things they want, they don't know what to do. And, just that kind of conversation you have with your friends. And her friend would say, I know exactly what you need to do. You need to build a lighthouse. You need to build a lighthouse, and pull the book out of her handbag and pass it on. I still get choked up about that because that's like 2 years later that I had that sort of realization that that's what I hoped for, that the lighthouse would be a thing that people could say, I know what you need. You need to build a lighthouse. Oh, you know what we need to do? We need to lighthouse that. That person's stuck. That person needs some help. Go lighthouse her. Go help her with her lighthouse. that it would be this verb, that it would be this thing, that it would be its own kind of standalone symbol that anybody could learn from or use or tweak and make it their own. So because of that secret dream, I was like, that's what I want. That's what ignites me inside. So I need to make a book, and I need to figure out all the steps. And I did. By the way, like anything that feels insurmountable, it's figure outable. You can figure it out. You can take baby steps. That's all I did. Tiny little baby steps. Um, Next one was it's not the right time. So now I'm like excited, right? Because I'm gonna write a book, and I'm talking to one of my friends who is also a product marketing coach, and I was telling her about, I was like, I think I'm gonna write a book, and so she was all excited for me. She said, well, when are you gonna start? And I said, oh, probably not like. This is probably, in the September now. This has all been sort of slowly kind of bubbling over months. September, October it was actually. And she said, oh, awesome. When are you starting? I said, oh, well, I've got other things I need to finish this year, and then it's going to be summer holidays and school holidays. And, I'll be at the beach and it won't be easy to write. And then I got to launch this thing in February. So I don't know, maybe like next year, maybe like around my birthday in March or something, I might start writing. She's like, seriously, by then there'll be other things that get in your way. It's never going to be the right time. Why don't you just start now? And my brain was making up all these excuses of why not now. And I recognized it. I recognized it as just more resistance. And I thought, if not now, when? I'll just keep putting it off. And it's never going to be the right time. So now, and that was in October. It was about mid-October. And NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, begins on November 1st. And I thought, maybe I could do that. And even though I'm not writing a novel, I could still use the idea of it to keep me accountable. So that's what I did. I started writing on November 1st. And the idea with National Novel Writing Month is you write 50,000 words in a month, which is about 5,500 or so words a day. And that's what I did. I finished the book in 24 days by writing every single day. I gave up watching TV and replaced it with writing. And I, let my family know that not to bug me. I set a time every night where I was going to retreat to my office. If I knew I was going to be out having, wine with my friends on an evening, then I would write in the day, or I'd write twice as much the day before. But I made it work. I committed to it, and because I knew otherwise the time would never be right. So that conversation, just again, recognizing the resistance, recognizing the excuses, allowed me to find a way to do it anyways, and to take some control and feel empowered and do it. I had another aha moment in another conversation after I decided, okay, I'm going to do this NaNoWriMo thing, and I was talking to my husband about it. He had a couple friends over, and they were talking about book writing, and they were all, the same kind of thing that I'd already kind of worked through, and around, I can't write a book like that because I'm not an expert, I don't have enough research yet, I don't blah, 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 all these stories. And at the time, I just finished reading this book, Big Magic. This one was really a aha moment for me. It really changed things for me. I should read it again because I think that no matter where you're at in your journey, whatever your idea of creativity is, even if it's not a book, even if it's just creating something new in your life, this book is just so powerful. Anyways, this is what I read to them. I made them all stand, totally lighthouse to them. I made them all like stand in my office, and I stood with the book in front of me reading them. But this is what Liz Gilbert says. You are not required to save the world with your creativity. Your art not only doesn't have to be original, it also doesn't have to be important. For example, when anyone tells me they want to write a book in order to help other people, I always think, oh, please don't. Please don't try to help me. I mean, it's very kind of you to want to help people, but please don't make it your sole creative motive, because we will feel the weight of your heavy intention and it will put a strain upon our souls. It reminds me of this wonderful adage from columnist Catherine Whitehorn. You can recognize the people who live for others by the haunted look on the faces of the others. I would so much rather you wrote a book in order to entertain yourself than to help me. Or if your subject matter is darker and more serious, I would prefer that you made your art in order to save yourself, or to relieve yourself, of some great psychic burden rather than to save or relieve us. I once wrote a book in order to save myself. I wrote a travel memoir in order to make sense of my own journey and my own emotional confusion. All I was trying to do with that book was figure myself out. In the process, though, I wrote a story that apparently helped a lot of other people figure themselves out, but that was never my intention. If I'd sat down to write Eat, Pray, Love with the sole aim of helping others, I would have produced an entirely different book. I might have produced a book that was insufferably unreadable. Um, my point is that I wrote the book for my own purposes. Maybe that's why it felt genuine and ultimately even helpful to many readers. Consider this book, for example, which you're holding right now. Big Magic is obviously a self-help guide, but with all due respect and affection, I did not write this book for you. I wrote it for me. I wrote this book for my own pleasure because I truly enjoy thinking about the subject of creativity. It's enjoyable and useful for me to meditate on this topic. If what I've written here ends up helping you, that's great, and I'll be glad. That will be a wonderful side effect. But at the end of the day, I do what I do because I like doing it. So it's okay if your work is fun for you, is what I'm saying. It's also okay if your work is healing for you, or fascinating for you, or redemptive for you, or if maybe it's just a hobby that keeps you from going crazy. It's even okay if your work is totally frivolous. That's allowed. It's all around allowed. Your own reasons to create are reason enough. Merely by pursuing what you love, you may inadvertently end up helping us plenty. There is no love which does not become help, taught the theologian Paul Tillich. Do whatever brings you to life then. Follow your own fascinations, obsessions, and compulsions. Trust them. Create whatever causes a revolution in your heart. The rest will take care of itself. Didn't mean to get choked up there. But that moment when I lectured those three grown men about how they had permission to create whatever was calling to them, I had my own aha moment, because at that point I was feeling this pressure. I was working on the outline to get ready for NaNoWriMo, and I had this pressure in my head that I had to get it right. I had to get it all perfect. I had to have the book be helpful and useful and engaging and capital letters and perfection. And instead, in that moment, I realized I could just write like I talk. I could give myself my own advice that I give others and just be me and share my story. And I wrote this book as a love story. My love of this thing, this framework, this symbol, this inspiration that changed my life. And I hoped that in my own writing of what had meaning to me, that it would indeed help others. So, permission to just do it for you. Do it as a love story. Do it as an adventure. Explore whatever it is you want to explore in your life because it excites you, or because it gets you angry and ranty and you want to express that, or any other reason. So, another big aha moment that was a push to change, to push through. The last big one I'll share, and this was one I actually had an aha moment about as I was writing, and that was about fear. I was writing a little chapter about fear and my process that I teach people for facing their fear, which is to let it all play out. And I thought, what example will I use? And I said, well, I'll try it for myself. So I thought, what is my biggest fear with this book? And I got really honest with myself, and I thought, truly, like, what is my biggest fear? And it was, what came to me is that my biggest fear is that not even that other people wouldn't like it, but that I wouldn't like it, that I wouldn't like the book. I'd be disappointed in myself. I'd be reading it going, this is awful, like it sucks. And now what? If I don't even like it, if I'm not happy with what I've shared, if I'm not happy with this thing I've been passionate about, then what? I'll be left with nothing. What will I do? That was my big fear. And then letting it all play out, I could start to find solutions. Okay, well, realistically, what would I do? Would I give up? Well, no, I definitely wouldn't have given up. Would I, just dump the whole lighthouse revolution and start over? No, I still believe in the message. I still believe in the symbol and the framework and what we can learn from it. So I thought, well, I could probably hire somebody to make it better. That's what I would do. And suddenly I was like, that's what I'll do. I'll just have to get enough funding and sell enough books that I can pay for somebody to edit the book and make it better, write it for me, whatever I'd have to do. So there was my solution. So that story is actually in this book. Um, and the last big one really was, you know, the fear that nobody would buy. And as I was looking at selling the book and launching the book, I had this fear, you know, I was considering crowdfunding, and I had this fear nobody would buy, to be disappointing, and all of the, again, the work to figure it out and figure out all the steps. And I thought I could just put it up on my website and do that myself. And I just caught myself and thought, no, I know exactly what I'll do. I'll put it up on my website. I'll hope that people will buy. And if it doesn't, I'm going to beat myself up, and I'm just going to kind of hide. And I'm just going to say, hey, I've got a book. You want to buy it? And then just let it go. And I thought, nope, I can see myself doing all of that, and that's not enough. I had that secret dream. I wanted the book to reach people. So I purposely chose to do the Kickstarter, the crowdfunding, to push myself out of my comfort zone. So I'd have to stand up and talk about the book for, 30 days and really get the word out. And I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did that. It was the hardest thing I ever did, and also the most awesome thing. Exploring this project and bringing it to life and letting this dream come to life helped me to get clarity on who I am and what I can help people with, and my, my talents and my gifts, and my message, my why, my mission, all of that stuff. And the mindset stuff, even though it was the hardest I ever did, it's helped. Like, those are tools and strategies that I never would have had, the ones that I learned through this whole process, and the ones I teach people now. And the big one, the thing that surprised me most of why this was the most amazing thing ever, is because of doing it, and because of sharing it and having to be visible about it in order for this book to be passed on, in the world. I had to, do the mindset work and the visibility and everything else, but it meant that it was the first thing I've ever really done that I could share universally. And the support I received from family, from friends, from strangers, from the community I'd already started building, from people who wanted to help me spread the word. There's nothing else like that in the world. And when we keep our light hidden inside, we never get to experience that. We don't experience what it means to touch other people, even just, friend to friend, family member to family member, and to be your true self and own your voice, and to say out loud, this is what I'm into, and say it out loud. Some people didn't like it. Some people still don't like it. Some people are never ever going to be into what I do, but they know I do it now. They know I do it because I brought it to life. So there's a million other moments along the way, and there still are. I'm still working on this dream of mine. I'm still bringing it to life. And I'm saying that because we tend to think what everyone else has got their shit all figured out and it's all polished and awesome, but that's not actually true. I'm working on this every single day. I'm working on my stuff. I'm working on visibility. I'm working on mindset. I'm working on, authenticity. I'm working on getting unstuck. I'm working on not giving up, all of those things. It's just now I've got this. I've got the lighthouse to help me. I've got the tools in my tool belt, and I keep going because I believe it matters. Big magic is one of those things that if you've got something you want to explore in your life, this was a book that changed things for me. Another one that's amazing is The Big Leap, if you've never read that, by Gay Hendricks. To explore your own sort of limiting beliefs and your resistance, that's really powerful for anybody. And this isn't a book author thing. It's not a creativity thing. It's like, no matter what you do in the world, Big Leap is kind of a must read. It's amazing. Another one that really changed things and inspired me is Stephen Pressfield's books, Do the Work and The War of Art. When you're exploring resistance and you're exploring bringing something to the world, a creative project, those two books are amazing. The Beautiful Writers podcast was one that really inspired me because it's not about writing, but it's a book to talk to writers. So surrounding myself, even just in a podcast with other people who are real normal people who just happen to write amazing books, that was really inspiring. So surround yourself with people who are doing amazing things, not to compare yourself to them, but rather to be reminded that you too have a light to shine in the world. It's your turn next. Recently, I've just started reading this one, The Artist's Way. Amazing, so powerful. Another one that I read recently that really was so great is called The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Again, they're not about creativity or art or writing or any of that stuff, but rather just getting out of your own way and taking action. Simple strategy. The 5-second rule is just going to help you stop staying stuck and take action. Become a connoisseur of whatever it is that inspires you. I became a connoisseur of books, and every time I pick up another book, I'm like, well, this is a cool way to tell the story. This is a cool format. This is neat. It reinforces to me that there's so many stories to tell, that there are so many ways to share them. Do it your way. Be inspired by the stuff around you. So if you're feeling inspired to teach, be inspired by teachers. If you're feeling inspired to to change your life in some way with self-care or health or fitness or overcoming some kind of a challenge or having a better relationship, surround yourself by people who are being real about it and doing it and showing you that it can be done and that it's your turn next. Become a connoisseur of the thing that inspires you and allow it to inspire you every day. And that's my last little bit of advice. So I hope to anybody who's watching out there that there's something in here just to let you know that it's never going to be the right time. It's never going to be perfect. You'll never feel enough of anything because of that, that voice in your head that's telling you you're not, in order to keep you small and safe and sane and stuck. And it's your job to choose to listen to your inner wise voice instead, that lighthouse version of you that already is the best, highest, brightest version of you, and what she would tell you instead. And that would be, start now, start today. Take one tiny little step, shine a light on one little bit of resistance that you're feeling, and start looking for the signs that show you that's not the way it is. And if you are bringing something to life, if you're writing a book, if you're, making a change, if you're exploring something, if you've got a big dream, share it. Start talking about it. Share it. If you need a place to share it, Lighthouse Revolution community is here for you. # Lighthouse Revolution on Facebook. You will have your #1 fan in me. I'll be the first in line to buy your book, to cheer you on, to comment on your post, to support you in doing whatever it is you want for yourself. So thank you. I hope that sort of behind the scenes look at the true path of all the little things that get in your way and how you can find a way through anything is helpful. There's something in there that will help you. Thanks for helping me celebrate first birthday of this little baby of mine. And I got some fun things coming up next week to help just have some fun with this birthday bash for this book. And above all else, thank you for shining your light in the world, because when you do, you inspire other people to do the same. And that is what's going to change our world.